Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of November 19th, 2025. 10 DC books that we're going to talk about today. Thought it was a pretty okay week. Nothing blew me away, but everything was pretty solid. I will say that, at least last week we had the Aquaman KO tie-in that really, I felt like was a very important book in terms of the event. But I still agree with what Rocky was saying last week about how, man, DC KO is maybe the most exciting thing happening in the main line. And I don't know, it almost seems to be an afterthought at times. Like you look at, there's like one tie-in this week and it didn't even feel super significant. So I don't know. How'd you feel about the week, Rocky?
I thought it was a very mediocre week. I thought it was, this is the second week in a row where I felt it was a little bit, maybe even below mediocre. There's some, certainly there's our top five. I would say it's more my top three that really stand out for me. DCKO is, as we get more into it, I'm going to have a lot more to say. So I want to save a lot of my comments because you and I do get we do get some preview copies. So I want to save a lot of my comments for future weeks. But I do think that I wish we were getting a little bit more of DCKO tie-ins, a little bit more, because it's, in my view, I know people, they just can't make me happy, DC. And it's not their fault, maybe. The mainstream mind seems weak to me. I would like to see more DCKO tie-ins because I really love DCKO. This isn't like Night Terrors. I'm actually interested in DCKO. So I wish we'd get more DCKO tie-ins. So it's a great problem to have. But I do feel that I want more DCKO. I really want it to get started and start moving. I'm just getting impatient. And that's probably more on me. And maybe that speaks to the success of the event itself. The anticipation. So
yeah, I've been trying not to read ahead. It's trying to strike that balance, like if I have time to read ahead, it makes it easier when we're going to record. But then at the same time, I don't necessarily like to be spoiled. I've been reading a lot of other stuff as well. This year for the 12 days of the Comic Source, I'm doing 12 fireside chats where I'm just talking with 12 of my favorite creators. So I've been reading a lot of their work. Some of the things I've read before, but just refreshing myself so that when they come on, it'll be fresh in my mind. So yeah, that's what's been going on. And then I forgot last week, I do still have two of these packs left of the Superman. So yeah, we have to kind of take the green screen off, but kicking it off there with everybody's favorite, lecherous sports reporter, Steve Lombard. Next up we have, the twins, Starchild and Red Sun, I guess, are there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Their names, Osel and Otha.
Yeah.
Stuff is very, very familiar and very recent.
Oh,
Rocky's
God.
favorite, Jade
Yeah.
Nakamura, pink hair
Yeah.
and pink blazer.
A matching blazer. How lovely.
Yeah. Classic cover, All-Star Superman #1, who, a lot of people will recognize that cover. Maybe the one Grant Morrison story that I enjoy, which is kind of appropriate considering one of the books we're going to talk about. Also a big inspiration for the recent Superman movie that came out this summer. Got a Mr. Miracle. I think I had that one already. That's it. So one more to go. Again, liking these cards. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. Real quick before we do though, I do want to mention that had an episode come out the other day for independent book from Top Shelf Productions, which is now owned by IDW, called Bridge Planet 9, which is this heist story in outer space, which is really, really cool. I had the writer artist Jared Throne on to talk about it. It was a lot of fun. So head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel to check out that if you're so inclined. So kicking it off this week, I was a little surprised because typically Rocky really enjoyed this title, but it's Batman Superman World's Finest #45. Didn't make either of our top fives. Written by Mark Waid, Adrian Gutierrez on pencils, Adrian Gutierrez and Norm Ratman handle inks and finishes, then Tamara Bonvillain on colors. It's called The Merger Part 1. That refers to the fact that we get the Joker and Lex Luthor merged into one supervillain. Shenanigans ensue while they're trying to steal some alien technology. Some of the alien technology explodes, and what emerges from that explosion but a Juther, a Loker. I don't know how
Oh,
mash
oh,
their names together. I don't know.
all right.
But anyway, it's a fun concept, and I do really enjoy the colors, especially because, as you can see there, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's Lex with that color palette that we're oh so familiar with from like the Super Friends days, Challenge of the Super Friends, the Legion of Doom, and it's just nostalgic for me. But I sound like a broken record when it comes to this title. If this was a different artist, I probably would be digging on this. It would because it's you don't have to know a lot of continuity. You don't have to know what's going on in the Absolute Universe or with Darkseid or DCK or whatever. You can just read this for what it is. But the Gutierrez art with that ink splatter thing that he does, it's just not for me, and it constantly pulls me out of the story, and I just have a hard time enjoying it. Um, and you talk about it being a little bit of a mediocre week. For me, what really was kind of hammered home for me this week reading the DC books was how much of a collaboration it is 50-50 with the writing, the story that we're getting through the narration and the dialogue and the scripting and what have you, and the art. And if one or the other doesn't work, then the comic doesn't work, or at least not to the level that it doesn't live up to its potential. And unfortunately, that's what this issue is for me. It just doesn't live up to its potential because I don't care for the art. So anyway, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just respectfully disagree with you. I really like Gutierrez's art. Art's subjective. It doesn't. I actually think it works for me. It never pulled me out of the story at all. It didn't make my top five, but it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was quite. I thought Mark Waid does a great job scripting it. I love the fact that the Absorbicron is the archaeological object that Joker wants Luthor's help to obtain, and of course that brings in Hawkman, who's an archaeologist, and so this is an early team up, one of the first team ups between Lex Luthor and Joker. It's got humor in it. And of course, it's got Batman and Superman, who at the beginning are basically watching watching a sports event in the Batcave. This is really great building character moments of the early days of DC heroes, as Mark Waid does so well, and then subsequently he'll tell present day stories that often reference the very stories he's telling in World's Finest, and it works. It really is. This is an entertaining comic. It's probably unfair that this isn't part of my top five. I will say this is the highest form of compliment to Mark Waid. World's Finest is a series. This is 45 issues in, and I would recommend to anybody, a great gift for lovers of DC, buy them a series of trade paperbacks of World's Finest. You will not be disappointed. They're accessible, they're easy to read, they're entertaining, and this is just another example of that. There was just happened to be others this week that whetted my appetite a little bit more.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you said top five, but it really could have been top three. But then you really seem to enjoy this. I'm going to be curious where it ranks for you. Must be six. Must have just missed. All right. Up next we have Superman Unlimited number 7. This looks like a job. Plot by Dan Slott. Dialogue by Jeremy Adams. I don't know what's going on there. Jeremy scripting for Dan Slott. Who knows? Art is by Lucas Meyer, friend of the show. Shout out to Lucas. I'm sure he's probably listening. Colors by Marcelo Maiello, and letters by Dave Sharp. So this made my top 5. In fact, it made my top 3. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
This is a perfect example of what I was just talking about with the art and the dialogue, the scripting, what have you. The overall plot of the story, all working together to give us a really fantastic story. First of all, Lucas's clean line work. I love that he draws John Kent to look like, a young Clark Kent in a way, like we get, through the story, we basically Lois is doing that motherly thing where she's kind of encouraging, I'll put that in air quotes, encouraging John to follow in the footsteps of her and her husband, Superman or Clark Kent, what have you, to become a reporter. And he's like, I'm in Smallville as Superboy. How am I going to do that? He's like, well, just put on the glasses. It works for your dad. And he's skeptical of it, but it does actually work. It's pretty interesting. But the point is that with John Kent, who already looks a lot like his father as he's been aged up, which, that's still a sore spot for a lot of people, and I get it. But then you put the glasses on him, you're making him look even more like Clark Kent. but he, like when you see the way that Lucas draws Clark and the way he draws John, it is so different, right? John doesn't just look like a smaller version of Clark. He looks like his own person, despite the fact it's the same coloring and similar features and, same color hair, glasses, what have you. So I really appreciated that because not every artist can do that. So that's fantastic. And I loved like kind of the continuity of it. I love the idea of Lois kind of spreading herself too thin. Dan Slott's planting some seeds here. She's trying to run all these different Daily Planet satellite offices, and she's using like this hologram technology to do it, what have you. And I can see her kind of burning herself out. But it also seems very true to the character of what we know of Lois, and that's really what we're getting from Dan Slott here. A lot of characters that are staying true to kind of their classic version. So, we just talked about how World's Finest is so easy to follow with being continuity light. Superman Unlimited really is as well, which is really kind of a tightrope walk that Dan Slott's doing because it does feel connected enough that you want to be reading it, but you can pick this up. You don't need to read anything else. And if you're reading other stuff, DCK or whatever, you don't necessarily have to pick this up. There's nothing happening here where you're like, oh my God, I have to know what's going on. But it does somehow still feel important. And so I like the idea of John Kent as a reporter following in his parents' footsteps. I think it gives him a little bit more of an identity to have him out on his own, but still tied to Smallville. I've gone on record many times as saying I don't feel like he should be called Superman because he hasn't necessarily earned it. I said that a few years ago. He's done a lot since then, but is it earned? I don't know. But having him in Smallville, you can't help but get Superboy vibes, and that works, especially with John Henry Irons still having relocated his corporation there, Ironworks, which is a really interesting idea to take it out of Metropolis and put it in Smallville because Smallville is a weirdness magnet, which I love because that's kind of a callback to the Smallville TV show, which I think could possibly be a touchstone for other, people, fans of that show who might want to get into reading comics. It's not the first call out that Dan Slott's done for that. And so along with Ironworks and John Henry Irons, if they're relocating, well, then we're going to get Lana Lang too. And she belongs in Smallville. She's such a part of what Smallville is as a town, and has, long-term relationships there and grew up there and what have you. So I loved everything about this. Again, I'm not sure why Jeremy did the dialogue, but I thought he did a fantastic job. I thought the art was fantastic. The colors were great. It did have a little bit of Smallville TV show vibe with kind of I think the term was freak of the week that they used to use back then. Where,
yeah.
There are antagonists.
The wall
here.
of weird. She had a wall of weird, I think.
Yeah, the wall of weird and the freak of the week, what have you. So there are antagonists. I wouldn't go so far as to say they're villains. It's a little bit of a misunderstanding, and it kind of gets worked out or whatever. But it just felt so similar to the vibe of the television show. So I say all that to say, if you were somebody who liked the Smallville TV show, then you should be reading Superman Unlimited. It's absolutely fantastic. So again, great job by everybody. Lucas's art is amazing, and really love what Dan Slott's doing with this book. So yeah, no brainer in my top 3. What'd you think of it?
I give Dan Slott credit for some of these ideas that he's bringing together are pretty good. Except what really took all the wind out of my sails is, and I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but I thought this is unbelievably disappointingly derivative. First of all, the Daily Planet, print media is dead in local areas in our world, but I guess in comic books it's not. Opening up a newspaper in Smallville so their son can have a job. It's so derivative. John Kent doesn't have a direction in his life, and so he's going to his parents need to tell him to be a reporter. He doesn't know what he wants to do, so he's going to be a reporter. It's derivative. It's uninspired. I just thought, and then they relegate him to Smallville. Right down to him giving him a secret identity with the glasses. Again, derivative, but I guess I understand it. I guess if you don't have any original ideas for the son of Superman, I guess you're going to go with just make him Superman, a clone of Superman, basically a glorified Superboy. And that's what they've done. Now, that's sounding harsh, but here's the thing. As harsh as what I just said, I actually agree that Dan Slott with Jeremy Adams' dialogue made it funny and entertaining as hell. I mean, I really thought it was funny. At one point, John Henry Irons says to Lana, I mean, glasses? Really? You think people are not going to recognize you? And Lana laughed and said, yeah, you'd be surprised. So there's a lot of like in jokes that I thought were really good. There was even kind of a joke with there's a young man who works for Steel Tech or whatever, where his name's Paco. His name's Paco, and he's got a crush on Superboy, but he ignores John Kent. He could care less about John Kent, but he has a real crush on Superboy, especially after he finds out that him and Jay Nakamura broke up. So it's that sort of like Lois Lana Superman dynamic, and now John Kent might have it with this Paco character. So there's a lot of sort of derivative, almost tropey, duplicative things that we got in the original in here. But strangely enough, it kind of works because if you look at it in the sense that the way I look at it is it's entertaining. It's got callbacks to a lot of successful Superman franchises, like you said, Smallville, and one of the most successful, I think, triangles of all time is the Lois, Lana, Clark Superman dynamic, and here we might get John Kent and Paco, and I already like Paco more than I like Jay Nakamura, so bring on Paco, So oddly enough, I kind of got mixed feelings about it, but I will admit that this could probably grow on me as it goes. But I was a little disappointed that it was a little derivative with the glasses and him being a reporter. But I can get used to this only because it's entertaining. It is entertaining. Never made my top 5, but it is entertaining.
Yeah, Paco doesn't have pink hair, so of course you're going to like him more. That's number one. I won't deny that obviously there's echoes here of other things, but it's like, okay, here, this is Dan Slott's chance to write Superman. He's a huge Superman fan. So it's like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, because it's just what it is, right? If somebody's going to write a Batman story, and hey, this might be the only chance I ever get to write a Batman story, and then what villain do they inevitably go with? Well, I got to put in the Joker. This might be the only, you know what I mean? So it's kind of that same thing. That might be why we're getting some of this stuff. But I don't mind it because, again, it's just, this is so sort of ingrained into the fabric of who these characters are. Now, again, they missed out on so much of John's life. They see that he's directionless. It feels very real to me that they would kind of push him into being the reporter thing, because it's what they know and they're successful with. Plus, it's sort of in his genes. I mean, Lois is right. Like, his parents are two of the best reporters on the planet. Plus, he just got a relationship with the guy that was a reporter. He does search for the truth. So it does seem like a good calling, but I take your point. Like, well, that's not original. It seems kind of boring that he's just going to follow in foot. He ends up being, a clone. He looks like his dad. Now he's wearing glasses like his dad. He's going to reporter like his dad. Like, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, can he be his own character? Well, hopefully, this sparks something in him and maybe he doesn't say reporter, maybe he does something else. But the other point being, you said print is dead. Keep in mind, they're not opening a newspaper. These Daily Planet, they're not opening these Daily Planet satellite offices to go and print paper newspapers. That's not what they're doing. If you call back to the first issue of Superman Unlimited, Morgan Edge's wife or whatever, and she got the Daily Planet and the divorce, what have you. This is about discovering truth. That's what she was all about. We could do with a lot more truth, not just in the DC universe.
It's more of a satellite office.
Yeah, it's a satellite office. Everything's published online, but it's more about just having sort of journalistic integrity, people that work for the Daily Planet that aren't going to be selling quote unquote fake news, that are also going to hold the powers that be accountable. Now that's what it's supposed to do. That's what they've given lip service to. Whether or not they can do that or whatever, we certainly don't seem to be able to do that in the real world, at least not here in this country. Other countries do it better. They hold their politicians a little more accountable than we do here. But it's neither here nor there. I did want to make that clear that they're not opening these satellite offices to print newspapers, because you're right, print is dead, and I don't think that's what they're trying to do. Dan Slott, I remember talking to him at WonderCon right before this got announced, when he was telling me about all his plans and everything, and some of it still hasn't, I can't say because it hasn't been shown in the pages of the book yet, but I did get the sense that he has so many ideas it's going to take a while for them to all come to fruition, because there is a lot going on. Because one of the things he was really excited about was the was it Gorilla Grodd's niece or whatever, that's sort of their IT person, and we've barely seen her here. But you think about her coming from Gorilla City and all their advanced technology, and think about some of the things that the Daily Planet would be able to do. Like, I almost wish this wasn't. I almost wish there was a separate book that Dan Slott got to write, or this was like twice as big and like a double feature where we'd get like another, even if it was like a 10 or 12 page story that didn't have anything to do with Superman and just focused on Daily Planet and, you know, the technology and how they're searching for the truth and trying to get the truth out there and what have you. But it's sort of tough, right? Like, these comics sort of mirror where we are, you know, in our society, and certainly these are American comics, so they're going to, in a way, reflect America. You can't make them idealized and have them exposing, you know, politicians or corruption or whatever, if that's not what's happening in real life, because then it starts to get too far off the rails or it feels preachy. So it's kind of a tough row to hoe, if you will, just based on the fact that Dan Slott has made the Daily Planet such a central part of this story. But again, he can't go too far off of what reality is with, you know, like, but imagine if something happened and, you know, some big scandal or whatever happened to this like presidential administration in real life, then he'd be able to do something similar in the book, but you can't do it in the book. I think if it's not in real life, it makes it, and I don't think it used to be that way. It used to be, you could be a little more like, you know, make Lex Luthor president. You can't necessarily do things like that now. It starts to be too close to reality. I've had that conversation with Mark Waid as well, like thinking up these ideas or whatever, or like John Byrne thinking up Lex Luthor as this, reimagining him when Man of Steel came out as this like very powerful businessman instead of a mad scientist, and then how prescient that's turned out to be. So that kind of stuff gets kind of interesting. So anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Catwoman number 81, written by Torunn Grunbeck, Danilo Beyruth on art for the present, Patricio Del Pesce on art for the past. Patricio Del Pesce also handles the colors, Steve Wan's on letters. This didn't make my top 5, didn't make your top 5 either, but I do want to say this is a perfect example of the kind of the theme of this episode, apparently, where we talk about kind of having the right art and the right story for the right medium, right? And what I was struck by as I was reading this book, because I am interested in what Torunn Grunbeck, I think she has some good ideas for Catwoman, but you say it all the time about how, you know, Catwoman needs to be sexier and whatever, and that's your you know, personal preference for her.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily disagree. But I think back to, and you said it yourself, art's subjective, right? Like, I think back to like Darwin Cook on Catwoman, and I don't think and I love Darwin Cook's rendition of Catwoman. Don't get me wrong. I love Darwin Cook's art just on anything. I think Darwin Cook was brilliant. I love his art. But sexy is not a word I would use to describe his rendition of Catwoman. But his, you know, the books that he did, the Catwoman work that he did is you know, beloved. And so I don't necessarily think that Catwoman has to be sexy in order for it to work. That being said, I think that this run of Catwoman from Torunn Grunbeck, it's not a comic. The story she's telling is not, I think, a story that's best told in this medium. Now, we haven't had the, you know, really flashy artists on this run of Catwoman, and maybe if we did, I would be singing a different tune, but I kind of don't think I would. Like, it just, again, it struck me with how much dialogue Catwoman's narrating this herself, and there's just so much to read here and getting the tone or whatever. And I got about maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through this issue, and it just kind of hit me all of a sudden. I was like, you know, like Torunn Grunbeck's entire Catwoman run so far, it feels very prosaic. Like, I think it would make an incredible Catwoman novel, where it probably would be a little bit easier to keep the characters straight too, because we know in that first run that she had, there were so many different characters. and they didn't have costumes, whatever. And at times it was difficult to tell them apart. But I think with a novel, it'd be, you kind of get a better idea establishing who's who, and when you see their name on the page as you're reading it or whatever. This story is not, in my mind, best suited to be being told in a comic book. Not that it's not a good story. I think this would be a great Catwoman story, because it does still have that espionage feel. And, we talked about switching to this current arc where there's ties back to Gotham City, even though Catwoman's still in Europe because the Falcons are over there and there's machinations going on there with other crime families in Europe. So again, there's a lot of good ideas here. I just don't think that this is the right medium for this story to be being told in, especially not with this style of art. So yeah, just kind of throwing that out there. Anyway, anything to add, Rocky, other than we know it's not sexy? We know.
Yeah. Well, I do think the color palette as well, just doesn't work for me. I think I will say that the cover art, one thing about Catwoman comics, whenever there's a new era with a different creative team, we always get some very creative covers. So the covers here are quite cool. I think the color palette works for the covers because they're sort of like thematically related. And this cover is pretty cool. Because the comic book itself has flashbacks to young Selena Kyle and the death of her mother and dealing with her sister Maggie. And that's juxtaposed in a way with the present story with dealing with Falcone and Catwoman sort of infiltrating higher society. She's still in Europe. And it's... Again, I think it would work so much more. You talked about a novel. I read this. It's like watching a Netflix espionage thriller starring a sexy woman. I just want to now. I know you don't want me to be repetitive here, but I will say that there is a scene here that had it be drawn more sexy. There's a scene here where Catwoman is basically there's another redhead sort of putting out her, is talking to her very provocatively, blows in Catwoman's ears. And you look at the dialogue and read the dialogue. It is it's a sexualized encounter. It's very sexy and there's innuendo there. And it just doesn't work because of the art, in my view. It just doesn't work. And it's so sad because there's so much potential there where literally Catwoman takes the cigarette butt and puts it out on a man's tongue. This is like Eyes Wide Shut sort of stuff. Like this is very clearly, this is the type of material, this story that I think cries out for this could almost be Black Label with a more sexualized artistic approach. But again, and that's not just me being a Purian fanboy. I think the narrative itself would benefit from that. But I digress. It's not in my top 5, so I'll stop talking now. But again, a lot of potential with this comic, but it's just not quite there because of the art, in my view.
Yeah, again, I don't care about that. I just want the art to be good, and I don't enjoy this art. I don't think it necessarily needs to be, because again, Catwoman works when Darwin Cook draws it. I don't find that to be sexy, so I don't think it's a sexual thing. But anyway, I forgot to mention there's a Freddie Williams II cover for the Superman Unlimited #2 that's really awesome, and then you have the Derek Cho variant cover up on the screen for Catwoman. But there's a Frank Cho ballpoint pen, which he's known for that medium. That's amazing. And I saw the original of that when I was at New York Comic Con when I got invited to his gallery show. It was really cool. All right. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about the next book. So we're up to Wonder Woman #27, The Island of Mice and Men, Part 5. Tom King is the writer, Daniel Sampere on art, Tameo Morey on colors, Clayton Cagle on letters. A lot of action in this one, I thought. But anyway, it's definitely in my top. It's in my top 3. I'll say that. But it's not in your top 5. I mean, not surprisingly, it's not in your top. I kind of had hope. I had my fingers crossed. That
well, you'd be surprised. Honestly, this came in at #6. Just missed my top 5. It did. So right. Did you want me to talk first, or did you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I don't look. I could cut and paste some of my past criticisms about this run from again, but I'll just. I want to focus on what I see Tom King trying to do. It doesn't necessarily work for me, but I will give him credit for what I see him trying to do here. Wonder Woman, since she lost Steve Trevor, has basically become unmoored. She has repeatedly said that in different issues about I am unmoored, I am unmoored. Basically means she's untethered. She feels disconnected. When she lost Steve Trevor, she lost a part of herself, and she's always trying to connect with herself. Part of her motivation, I am assuming, I'm reading into this, of why she wanted to have a child. She took a piece of Steve Trevor and she molded it in clay, and with the blessings of the god, Trinity was born, and Trinity is as much Steve Trevor as it is a reflection of her. And even though it's not a biological offspring of theirs, well, I guess it is. It's genetics from the hair, so it is. Trinity is legitimately an offspring of Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman. Well, Wonder Woman not only sort of failed and lost Steve Trevor, but then Etta Candy gets kidnapped along with I guess Emily, the infant Amazon, and then she goes to the Mouseman Island, and she stripes she has her infant Trinity on her back, and then she confronts Mouseman last issue, only to find out that her daughter has basically been kidnapped, and her daughter Mouseman is basically threatening her with her daughter, and the opportunity that Tom King had here going into this, and this is where I was very curious as to how he would handle it, is how will Wonder Woman react with the fact that she's facing this goofy, most goofy-looking machismo guy who looks ridiculous, but he has power, Mouseman. He's actually he's a competent enough opponent. He gives her a little bit of a run for her money. He threatens her. And what does Wonder Woman do in the face of a threat? I mean, he literally has the power to potentially kill her infant, or kill her daughter. And Wonder Woman, she has an extreme amount of confidence. She stands up to him and basically attacks him. And there's a lot of it's very Tom King, and Tom King has a very particular way of doing dialogue. It's very sparse dialogue, and he does so in such a way where he has Mouseman try to humiliate, and this is a pattern. He did the same thing with Sovereign. He does the same thing with Mouseman trying to humiliate Wonder Woman sort of taking it, and then Wonder Woman stepping up to the plate and then basically, humiliating Mouseman. And what I want to give Tom King some credit for here is Wonder Woman, she could have, if somebody's threatening your child, Wonder Woman could have been a lot more violent toward him. But just like she was with the Sovereign kills Steve Trevor. She doesn't she somehow restrains herself and doesn't kill the Sovereign. She has Sovereign carve something in his chest, carve the word liar in his chest. Here she's in front of Mouseman. Her daughter is threatened. And she uses a force here, and she essentially utilizes the Mouseman's own aggression and violence against himself. And what I thought was very well done was she literally hands Mouseman a machine gun at the end, and basically it's almost as if Mouseman was deciding his own fate. And it's by his own weapon that he gets harmed, because he very stupidly fires the machine gun at Wonder Woman as she walks away from him, giving him an opportunity. He could drop the gun and surrender. But he shoots her, and of course she deflects it, and he ends up getting injured by his own bullet. Absolutely dumb. I mean, Mouseman knows. I mean, Mouseman's an idiot. And so I think symbolically, in terms of the narrative, it's Wonder Woman sort of getting her power back. She was unmoored, untethered. She's trying to get control of her life again, and this is her way of doing that, while at the same time not losing her soul, not giving in to the use of lethal force, still showing some degree of mercy to an enemy that was willing to essentially kill her own daughter. So in that respect, I thought it was well done, in that respect. And, yeah, and the art was fantastic, and it was, again, it's a beautiful comic too. The visuals are beautiful, and it sort of upholds the status of Wonder Woman, and I'm curious as to see where this is going to be going moving forward. So I thought this was a decent issue. It just never missed my top 5, but I I'm not going to sit here and, I don't really have a rant. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I thought with her basically not putting up with his shit,
Yeah.
I've kidnapped your daughter. And she called, and she, like you said, she, with the confidence that I'm not going to do what he says. It's like that whole, I'm not going to negotiate with a terrorist, right? You give in one time, and then the next time they just ask for more. You give an inch and they take a mile. And she just, for not for 1 second does she even entertain giving into this guy. Instead, she just beats the living shit out of him, just throws him through castle wall after
Yeah.
castle wall after castle wall. Like, no, you said mercy. Like, I don't really see much mercy here. Could she have ended it swifter? Could she have perhaps killed him more definitively? Well, yeah, she could have, but it's almost like she wants him to be humiliated. She wants the pain to last longer. And yes, she does not actually pull the trigger, but she knows what's going to happen. She knows when she gives him the gun, based on this guy's behavior, based on everything he's done, that he's going to shoot at her and she's going to deflect the bullet back and kill him. So to me, she just as easily could have, pulled the trigger herself. I mean, we're talking, semantics here, really, when we talk about, did she kill Mouseman? Well, no, it was self-defense because she was blocking the bullet. Again, she knew what was going to happen. And
Do
so
you think
that was
he's
the
dead?
one.
Do you think he's dead? I don't think he's dead. I don't think he's
He
dead.
might not be. He might not be dead. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't think he is. No.
but let's say that at the end when he's humiliated and laying there on the ground, if she just took the gun and shot him, that would be a lot more controversial. But she knows exactly what's going to happen, and so it's not that different. And I don't like, whether or not he's dead or not. I don't. That's a line I don't like my superheroes to cross.
Yeah.
And I get it, like she snapped Maxwell Lord's neck or whatever. And no, it's comic books and nobody stays dead, whatever. I get all that. But that was the one part that I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. She knew what was going to happen when she gave him that gun, and he didn't let her down, so she might as well have shot him herself. But I think that just goes to show just how angry she is, that this guy has the audacity to take her daughter. Like, what are you doing? And you're right, he is an idiot. Like, what are you thinking? This is Wonder Woman. Like, you think you could take her daughter and get away with it? Like,
Yeah.
you mentioned that King, did kind of the same thing with the Sovereign in terms of, hey, he tried to humiliate Wonder Woman, the tables were turned. Mouseman clearly didn't learn the lesson or didn't pay attention. And I sort of like that. Like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. And some people might feel like it's repetitive storytelling or Tom King's going back to the same well. But I like that it's establishing continuity of character with his version of Wonder Woman, that she's, again, not going to overtly, harm somebody, but she's going to allow through inaction or through setting up events where she gets to enact as much pain and retribution on them as possible. And that's more along the lines of, the fierce Amazonian warrior, mythos from history and what have you. So that's kind of why I thought maybe this might sneak into your top 5, just because she does beat the ever-living crap out of him, and I thought you would really enjoy that.
Yeah,
because I did too.
I will say this: that I will say that the reason why I think he's still alive is because I know where the bullet went. The bullet went in the stomach, and I just watch. I remember watching all those war movies, and my understanding is that being shot in the stomach is one of the most painful ways to die. And I think she did that on purpose to cause him the most amount of pain. And I think that was very intentional, go into his stomach. And I don't think he's going to die because I just don't see that happening. Maybe he will be dead, but I just don't see it. But I think that adds to the tortures, putting the bullet in the stomach. I thought that was very intentional.
A lot of times getting shot in the stomach, I mean, obviously, if it's a mortal, it's like it's your heart or your head and you're dead immediately. Or if it hits a major artery or what have you. But being shot in the stomach, I mean, that's pretty serious too, because there's so much soft tissue there. It's hard to repair. That's why it's so painful. Sepsis, which is like, your intestines are leaking stuff out that's not supposed to be in your body. You're basically poisoning yourself. That's where all the pain comes in. And then your body's attacking itself, trying to stop that infection. And again, it's all the soft tissue, whatever. Anyway, we'll get more into that. But again, I just thought, yeah, this is a Wonder Woman that's taken no prisoners, as it were. And so I really enjoyed it. You mentioned the art. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about Daniel Sampere. I mean, this might be his best work to date. I mean, the
Yeah.
emotion on the faces. I've talked about it throughout this arc. I mean, less so in the most recent issues because we are getting more dialogue than just Mouse Man knows. A mice have ears, but early on in this arc, that's all the dialogue that we had, and that Daniel Sampere still had to tell a story. But there are scenes here, especially with the young girl that Wonder Woman befriended when she first got to the island, where she's being interrogated or what have you, where it is limited dialogue, and I think Sampere does a fantastic job. Once again, of strong visual storytelling. So, yeah,
Yeah.
this again, no brainer in my top three. This was fantastic.
Yeah, and
Um,
I just want to add that one of the things that we talked a lot about Wonder Woman v Mouse Man, but one of the things that the young girl is she's starting to the dialogue. The people of the island are starting to rebel, so they're starting to say more than just Mouse Man knows. You can tell that they're starting to rebel because their dialogue is expanding, and so that's an interesting little thing to you can sort of see that Wonder Woman's presence is having an impact, and that the people are starting to rebel because you can tell by the language itself, which is sort of enhances the narrative a little bit, even though it did start from maybe the absurdity of the Mouse Man knows to begin with. That's sort of a nice sign that finally we're getting that dialogue change is a welcome change, and it also is part of the narrative as well, showing that finally we're going to get some a rebellion in the midst with one leading in the way with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I think that the whole mouse man knows mice have ears the explanation of it, I thought it was brilliantly done a couple of issues ago. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and again, like Daniel Sampere's art is incredible, and it is a graphic image, what have you, but we don't want to gloss over it because it is a very important plot point with where this run started, right? I mean, we're 27 issues in here, and it started off with Emily, the Amazon, attacking a guy in a pool hall in Wyoming, and the Amazons getting banned from every nation on Earth other than Themyscira, basically. Um, and so it's been in the background, but Wonder Woman has wanted to find Emily and speak to her about what happened and why, and get some answers to possibly. You can't unring the bell, but maybe you can, try to explain and improve relations and what have you. But that's no longer possible because Emily is killed. Emily is assassinated in this
Yeah.
issue, and it's a brutal, a beautiful but brutal scene. Because unlike Mouse Man, who gets shot in the stomach, she gets shot in the forehead. So pretty sure she's not surviving, or perhaps she got shot in the back of the head and it went through, came out of her forehead. I don't think so, though. I think she got shot in the forehead. But anyway, it's brutal, and it's an important story point because we know, her daughter was there as well on the island. We know that her daughter is the one that eventually becomes the matriarch. Has to do with the Paradise War and all that. So this is all tied together. This is a big, sprawling story that Tom King is telling, and I feel like we're just getting maybe to the beginning of the middle. King sort of famously wanted to do 100 issues on Batman. He only got to 100. Wasn't his choice. Editorial took him off, but and some of the delays and what have you weren't all on him either. But I'm not making excuses for him. His run, wasn't very well received. The majority of it wasn't very well received, especially I think the cat bat wedding going awry, which I'm glad they didn't get married because we all know
You're
how I
not a
feel
fan
about
of
that.
that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. But maybe he'll get to 100 issues on Wonder Woman. I think that would be cool because again, I'm really enjoying what's happening so far. So anyway, moving on, we have Absolute Flash #9. Written by Jeff Lemire, Nick Robles on art, Jenna Lucas on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun, especially getting Nick Robles back on art. He's the one that started the book. I really feel like we got a lot of forward momentum in the plot on this one, and got some motivation for the rogues, and got a little more characterization for them. Um, and so yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I Absolute Flash has not been one of my top 3 titles for Absolute. It's probably actually down toward the bottom. I go maybe back and forth between this or Green Lantern as being my least favorite. But I thought this was a step in the right direction of kind of pulling me back in and making me more interested in it. So I really enjoyed what we had here. And I hope we continue to get issues where I feel like it's a big chunk of story like we did in this one. So made your top 5 as well. So what do you think?
It made my top 3. And pretty up there in my top 3, I might add. I've been really enjoying the Absolute DC universe, very, very much so. And this is Absolute. Right now, it's Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Batman, probably in that order. Coming in at number 4 is Absolute Flash. But you know what? I'm enjoying Absolute Lantern too. But in any event, this is called Rogue's Revenge, Part 1. And how are the Rogues different and the relationship with the Flash different in the Absolute universe? Well, it looks like the Rogues want Wally West to join them. And Wally West at first thinks this is absolutely crazy. Why the hell would I join you? You guys have been you've been chasing me from the beginning. We know that there was a massive accident in the laboratory that Wally West sort of snuck into because he was befriended by Barry Allen. And we know that Dr. Thrawn, it's revealed this issue, actually encouraged Barry Allen to befriend Wally West as a distraction to Wally's father. And ultimately, of course, we know the accident led to Wally West getting these powers. And Dr. Thrawn reveals here that her intention was to have Barry Allen be the one that would become part of the experiment that could be used to essentially, bring her father back and sort of link herself to this otherworldly power. But it ended up being Wally West. And so part of the revelation in this issue is last issue, we got a character-based issue with Dr. Thrawn and Barry Allen. I even speculated whether Dr. Thrawn and Barry Allen might there be an attraction there. It's revealed this issue. There's no question. Dr. Thrawn, she's just absolutely heartless. She was using Barry. She's using everybody. She's absolutely power hungry. She talks about how Barry Allen's too altruistic, and she used that to use Barry to get into the good graces with Wally, and she's clearly manipulative. So any hopes or speculation in that on my part, I was obviously seeing things. So I was totally wrong about that. And that's all well and good because I'm enjoying the hell out of the storytelling. I love that Wally and the Rogues they're making their way back to Dr. Thrawn's laboratory where the Rogues say to Wally, look, your dad's still alive. And we got to remember, Wally doesn't know that his dad's still alive. It's like, oh my God, he's still alive. So yeah, let's go rescue my dad. So Wally agrees to join the Rogues, but on their way back, we got a betrayal. The Trickster is working for Thrawn, and so the Trickster sabotages the trip back. Fortunately, Gorilla Grodd manages to save the Rogues, while the Trickster encapsulates her and Wally to protect Wally because they want to bring Wally back because he's the ultimate lab experiment that Thrawn wants to use to basically continue her machinations and to try to get control of this otherworldly power that's represented by whatever this Speed Force is, the nature of this Speed Force is in the Absolute universe. And I just think it works. To me, it worked very well. You're very right that this is an issue of forward momentum. Things are finally starting to come together here. I think they did a little bit last issue for me, but this one really sort of pulled me in. And I'm really glad. I said before, giving this 2 story arcs, meaning 12 issues, I wanted to give this 12 issues, failing which I was going to dump Absolute Flash. Well, we're at issue 9 here, so I have a feeling by issue 12, I'm going to be happy. Knock on wood here. I've really enjoyed this, and I like it all. I like it all around. I'm not sure where this is going. I got a lot of questions, but I like the Rogues even more now. I like the fact that there's a betrayal. And I really, really like what's really cementing itself for me about this Absolute universe in a way that is superior to the mainstream universe. I really, really like the fact that that this omega particles, that we know we're in a universe where darkness generally tends to prevail a little bit more. I just have a feeling I feel the evil more. I just feel it more in this absolute universe. It feels that these heroes are being tested more. And I realize we only have a handful of absolute titles, but it does feel that we just have more epic villains. And by doing so, we have more of an obstacle for the heroes to face, and the heroes find a way to step up and bring their A game. And that's just a general feeling I have, because I got to tell you, every single week, the first thing I look for is the word absolute in the titles, man. And that's the first thing I want to read. Even, I got to tell you, even with Absolute Green Lantern and even with some of the other titles, because I like this new universe that's taking shape. And I always try to look for the Easter eggs. I've missed some pretty big Easter eggs, admittedly. I don't know how I missed Zatanna, but it is in any Absolute Zatanna. But in any event, I really enjoyed this, and it definitely made my top 3. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I kind of said what I needed to say,
sorry.
but I do want to talk about maybe why this is not landing for me as much as some of the other Absolute titles, because it's such an interesting and extremely unique. This is a very unique situation, and why I maybe am not liking this more. So, Wally West is not my Flash. I prefer Barry Allen. Not that I don't like Wally. I love Wally, but if I have to pick between the two, I'm going to pick Barry Allen. But that being said, this title and Green Lantern, but I think this title more than any, because in Green Lantern we've had a large number of characters, familiar characters introduced as unrecognizable versions, or extremely different versions. In this, we have arguably maybe the second most, if not the most, number of familiar characters introduced as different versions, but closer. I mean, most of these rogues, there's some resemblance to their main universe counterparts. I feel like because of that, we've even got a Thawne, we've got the rogues. We obviously have Wally, and we have Barry, and Grodd. It's like we haven't had enough space in the story, or enough issues yet in the story to, like, I don't have a sense of who this Wally West is yet. It's almost like, with the exception of a couple of issues that were more focused on him. We even had Ralph and Sue Dinby show up. Don't forget about that. Elongated Man and his wife.
Yeah.
With maybe the exception of a couple of issues, it almost feels like Wally West is just part of an ensemble. He's not the main character. He's one of the main characters. You could make it like we had an issue that was just focused on Barry Allen and Thawne. Did Wally even show up in that issue? Maybe a panel or two. So it's like, because of the way that Jeff Lemire has structured this, I don't have a sense of who the Flash is yet, who the absolute Flash is yet, as opposed to something like Superman, where Jason Aaron said it over and over and over. Don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. Take your time. Take your time. And I get it. He's had more issues. We've had 4 more issues of Absolute Superman, but we've had Brainiac, Lois, Jimmy, Ra's al Ghul, who's not even a Superman character, Peacemaker, Christopher Smith, Ma Kent, the L's, Laura and Jor-El, so it's just I think it's the inherent challenge, right? Because, like you said, you love the absolute titles, you love the new versions, you love looking for the Easter eggs. So it's like people want to see this stuff. I want to see my favorite character. I want to see, the supporting characters. I want to see this. I want to see that. I want to see what the absolute version of that looks like. But we're in such a hurry. If we do too much too soon, then you end up with what happened with the first Ultimate Universe over at Marvel, where after 10 years they'd run out of ideas, because they had gone so quickly. So it's a tough problem, right? Because you have to keep it fun, you have to keep it engaging, you have to give reveals and give new versions of characters that we're familiar with, but you can't go too fast, because if you go too fast, then you run out of material. So yeah, for me, I think part of why it's not landing yet is because I just still don't have a sense of who Wally is. Now, I have more of a sense of who the rogues are, surprisingly enough. which is interesting. So
Yeah,
anyway,
it's fun. It's funny you should say that because for the very same reason I kind of like it because I'm not a big fan of Wally. I'm actually really enjoying getting to know the Rogues and Dr. Thrawn and Wally's father. And because that character work is so good, I haven't even thought about the absence of knowledge about you're right. We don't know a lot about Wally. And isn't that odd that it doesn't seem to bother me? It's weird. It's so, yeah.
yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, Wally West is their Flash,
Yeah.
and he's so well established with who he is as, like a family man and a guy in the main universe, as a family man whose heart is in the right place, who's always going to give his absolute best and oftentimes do the impossible and exceed his own limitations to save the world or save the planet or save the cat in the tree or whatever. Right? He's one of the most well established and probably one of the characters in the main DCU that's written the most consistently. Like you and I both really did not like the Simon Spurrier run, but that being said, Wally was still Wally. He was still the family guy. He was still he still had that drive to succeed no matter what, and sacrifice himself and put the well-being of others ahead of himself, despite all the the convoluted storytelling and all this scientific gobbledygook and whatever. Wally himself was consistent. So this Wally, we don't even know yet. So it's interesting, and I hope we get there. I hope we get there. So I also, man, I've been doing this like every time lately. I forgot to mention there are 4 Wonder Woman covers. Every one of them is like the main cover is probably my least favorite, but the other 3 are so good. Yeah. So that one is by Carrie Nord, which is just awesome. Then there's also one by Omar, and then there's a David Nakayama. So yeah, you can see, yeah, the David Nakayama is directly above Rocky's head, and then the one by Omar is like right beneath the V and the A and variant covers. Those are fantastic as well. So just wanted to shout out those covers. All right, up next we have New Gods number 12, final issue. Written by Rom V. Evan Cagle handles the majority of the art, pages 5 through 22. Phil Hester does the first 4 pages, and Andy Parks, his longtime collaborator, handles the inks for those pages 1 through 4. Then we have Francesco Segala on colors and Tom Napolitano on letters. And it in classic comic book fashion, the story ends again as 12-issue mini, but it ends with the final panel saying the New Gods will return. So this has been a series that you've struggled with. It's been up and down for you, Rocky. I was a little surprised, honestly, to hear that it was in your top 5. So what'd you think?
Well, it's no surprise to me. This ends, fortunately for me, this ended on a higher note for me. I've been hit and miss with this, but then you know what? Ram V has been hit and miss with me with his various titles, whether I loved his Swamp Thing, and I loved aspects of his Detective Comics, but it got convoluted at the end, and it was sort of meh. And then there was also that other miniseries he did that we loved. Yeah, the Vigil was excellent, and so it's one of those things. I think at times this series got a little bit esoteric, but one of the advantages that you and I have of reviewing these comics every week is that we have people who listen and to hold us accountable when we don't understand something. And the last issue that I reviewed, some of the people commented on the Comic Boom on my YouTube channel that this also plays on, not just on the Comic Source podcast. And they actually schooled me and they sort of very diplomatically told me that I sort of missed some significant plot points. And they were absolutely right about Big Barda and what have you, and about the God language. And I did actually Google it. And so I feel compelled to sort of hold myself accountable and sort of acknowledge and thank them for doing that, because I went back and I actually reread it and I enjoyed it a little bit more. There was still some confusion regarding the Black Racer, but in any event, what basically, in this issue, Ram V tries to bring it all into play. And the Nectare, the dark forces of the universe, when Darkseid left and went off into the absolute universe, so to speak, and there was a void of, the question was, what's going to fill in the dark void in the mainstream universe? Well, it's the Nectare that filled that void. The Nectare ultimately ended up attacking New Genesis, destroying New Genesis. The Earth is slowly becoming a new apocalypse. But meanwhile, the new gods flee to Earth. The Justice League helped them out. And Seraphim, the god, betrays them. And ultimately, they kidnap this chosen child that is protected by Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. This chosen child ends up being kidnapped by Maxwell Lord and is ultimately going to be used as a gift and given to Darkseid. And in this issue, this golden child whose mind has been taken over by Maxwell Lord, they attempt to basically take the child and put him through a black hole so Darkseid can achieve this golden child. And there is a lot of metaphor. There's so much metaphor in this comic. It's typical Ram V, but it just so happens this is one Ram V where the metaphors worked for me, and I liked it. I always say I'm a sucker for a good metaphor. That's only if I catch the metaphors and they work for me. This one worked for me. I like the fact that Scott frees himself from the prison that Desaad put him in, and he freed himself in a very metaphorical way, talking about how humanity knows how to deal with pain better than gods, because humanity is pain is. He says, I believe he said that pain is like a box, and the gods are. And humanity is better. It's sort of freeing itself. Pain is a box. Pain is not a box, but a state of existence. And humanity is really good at dealing with pain because they know that dichotomy is something that humanity is better to deal with than gods. And that's why ultimately gods always come up short. Seraphim, the reason why Seraphim betrayed the new gods is because he felt that they were always, that humanity was always coming up short, that they were never living up to their potential. And meanwhile, Mr. Miracle is without fear. He escaped the box because he's literally without fear. And what I found very interesting is that Orion, the actual biological son of Darkseid, who was raised by Highfather, has so much fear. He'd never had the courage, oddly enough, to go into the black hole to rescue the child, but Mr. Miracle did. So much so at the end that Mr. Miracle, that Orion gives up the crown, instead of being the next Highfather, he gives that distinction to Mr. Miracle. And I thought that's very interesting, creating a new status quo. There's going to be a new Genesis somewhere, and Mr. Miracle with Big Barda, with them raising this new sort of golden child, is going to be the new status quo now. The Nectare, my one criticism though, it's a criticism, and it might be, I think it's probably a big criticism. I think there's a little bit too much Deus Ex Machina. Now, the irony here is Deus Ex Machina means God in the machine. And of course, this is a comic book called The New Gods, so maybe it's appropriate that we have a Deus Ex Machina ending. But for this sort of like child who, this child is rescued from Darkseid, Mr. Miracle pulls the child out of this black hole, and the prophecy says that this child's is going to be gifted 8 opulences from the gods. And everyone assumed that the first opulence that this child would receive would be from Darkseid. But because the child's rescued, the first opulence this child receives is from a demigod, Wonder Woman herself, who has the child touch her magic lasso of truth. And the child sees the truth of his power and what he's capable of. And then he ages himself up and then goes up, and in an instant, in 1 or 2 pages, literally destroys the entire Nectare fleet. Just literally, they're wiped out. And that's my criticism. I feel that we had like 3 or 4 issues of building up, telling us the origin of the Nectare, how powerful they were. And they were really built up to be powerful and horrific. And they killed Orion's brother, Ray, what's his name?
Light Ray?
Light Ray, thank you. Light Ray was killed. I mean, we had loss, we had death, we had, prophecy of horrors to come, only to have them in an instant wiped out by the child. I thought that was a little bit too convenient. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's because he only had 12 issues, but I thought it was a little bit too convenient, the ending. But it didn't take away from the power of the story itself. There's a lot of exposition here. If you don't like exposition, you're probably less likely to maybe enjoy this story. A lot of how this resolved was in the dialogue, not so much the visuals, although the visuals were good too, but the visuals did need the help of the dialogue. And so in that respect, it might be a little bit of mixed feelings in that regard, but at the end of the day, I like the new status quo this sets up for the new gods in the DC universe moving forward. I think it elevates Mr. Miracle. I think it's going to help the new gods as a property, as an intellectual property moving forward, to have Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, who are probably the most well-known of the new gods, arguably anyway. They probably should be at the forefront of the new gods more, and this sort of sets that up in a great way. And overall, I thought this worked, notwithstanding my own maybe inability to grasp some concepts, but perhaps I read some of the issues too fast, because we do read a lot of comics every week. But overall, this I did enjoy this, and it was worthy of being in the top 5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It was so good. Evan Cagle on art on the final issue outdid himself. The aged up Kamal looked godlike, him unleashing his light. It's so interesting that, like, on it at the end of the day, this is such a dichotomous story. Does he kill the Niktari? Well, argument could be made that he doesn't, because he's using the source, he's using the light of creation, and again, if we go back to the earliest, and it is a complicated story, and maybe best read all in one sitting, but if you go back to the earliest issues, the origin of the Niktari, how they were corrupted because of what happened, and the darkness in them that corrupted them, and they could never be happy, and they were kind of, for lack of a better term, in suspended animation, and then they're reawakened at the beginning, and they go and they wipe out New Genesis, and then they're on their way to wipe out Earth. But did he destroy that? I mean, it even says Kamal, he reset them back to their innocent time, right? Because without the corruption that the Niktari experienced, they never would have lived this long. They wouldn't have been in that kind of suspended animation, and maybe their civilization would have died out anyway. So, I know I'm playing devil's advocate here, but it's almost like, did he end their existence? Well, yes, but maybe he reset their existence back to where it should have been. So you could almost think of like somebody who was cursed, and like, I don't know, some sort of demon or ghost, and they're going to, haunt the mortal plane forever.
Well, it could be a cycle of rebirth, like a resurrection and a rebirth.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, you can read it that way. Sure.
It completely could be, right? If he's lifted the curse, reset them back to the innocence. Will they be reborn, or are they just now finally laid to rest, like they always should have been, or what have you? I mean, that's just a really interesting idea. I didn't necessarily mind that it was Deus Ex Machina, only because it did serve the purpose of showing us just how powerful Kamal is, which does make sense if he's the next generation of God. You think of like the ancient gods, and then the generation of Darkseid and the new gods, and now even more powerful. So I love that idea, and we should see some more of him as well. You mentioned this kind of setting up a new status quo. That's interesting as well, because you're right, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda are probably the most well-known of the new gods. So having them kind of lead the contingent of new gods from New Genesis makes a lot of sense. Having Orion go off with Metron, who I love Metron. He's so enigmatic, and they're going to go hunt for Darkseid because they know Darkseid needs to be stopped. We know there's only one Darkseid in the Omniverse, which is interesting, that Darkseid is over there doing what he's doing in the Absolute Universe, but that is how he's so powerful. Kamal is so powerful that even Darkseid was like, all right, hold on with this Absolute Universe stuff. I got the chance to go get this power. We know how powerful Darkseid is, how powerful he's been stated to be in the DC All-In Special, and him, starting the Absolute Universe and all that. And still that Kamal, and the power that Kamal wields was important enough for Darkseid to kind of put everything else on hold and try to steal that power. That's interesting as well. You mentioned the fear and how Mr. Miracle is, through purely state of mind is like, I'm not in a trap because in my mind, I'm not in a trap. He's not scared because in his mind, he sets fear aside. Fear is a box and he's outside the box. And he chooses not to live in that state of pain. And it's so dichotomous when you compare that against Orion, right? The supposed consummate warrior who was too scared to go inside the black hole, who's too scared and has too much fear to lead the new gods and gives up the staff to Mr. Miracle and goes off. I love it. I love it that he goes off with Metron and he's going to go hunt. Like it sort of is that whole nature versus nurture. It's sort of like Ramvi's fallen on the nature side, right? Like, despite being raised on Apocalypse, Mr. Miracle is who he is, the son of Highfather, and still a very good person. And despite being raised on New Genesis, Orion couldn't overcome, the deficits of his own shortcomings, if you will. You could go the other way too and say, well, I mean, if Orion hadn't been raised on New Genesis, then he'd be like Calibac, right? He'd be completely evil, and he does have a lot of virtuous. So I could see it either way, but it's just such an interesting character because I think Orion is an underused character, and a lot of these new gods are underused, with the exception of Barda and Mr. Miracle. So I like that we got this, and not only did we get this 12-issue series that set up a lot of interesting things going forward, but it also did a good job, I think, of setting up the current status quo of who these characters are, because a lot of people aren't that familiar with these characters. And yeah, Seraphim had to pay the price to be the traitor, and maybe he has a redemption arc down the line. Maybe it's Ramvi, maybe it's somebody else, but at least we understood his motivations. It made sense in the context of the story. There's nothing in Seraphim's past from before this that I know of that hinted at him with the discontent that we were told that he was feeling from Ramvi. Mm-hmm. So we just have to take that for what it is and believe what Ramvi is telling us. And then I also totally forgot about the whole concept, because I don't think it's been used very often, about the fact that the new gods shrink themselves down in our dimension, in our reality, and they're normally much larger. I totally forgot about that. So yeah, that makes sense that Barda would be big. And I love the line when the other characters looking at her and saying how large she is. And he's like, oh, it's right in the name, Big Barda. I also love the concept of Desaad, that the fact that Desaad, who's always been drawn since the very first time that Jack Kirby drew him, as kind of disfigured and hideous and ugly. And the fact that Ramvi came up with this idea that he's chosen to look like that, chosen to kind of try to emulate Darkseid in looks, but he's actually a very handsome individual, because that leans into this whole idea of like the devil being very handsome and suave and can manipulate people and seduce them and what have you. So I really enjoyed that as well. So
I got a question for you. I noticed that when Mr. Miracle saved Kamal, he said something to him in the God language, but I mean, I tried to find the translation. Apparently, it's somewhere online to understand the God language.
Yeah,
I didn't know how to Google. I Googled it, and there's a website I went to, but it only translates from English to the God language, not the other way around. And I don't have keyboards. My keyboard is not. I don't have keyboard in. So, anyways, I don't know what he said. So, if anybody listening knows what, can figure that out, what did Mr. Miracle say to Kamal on those final pages, I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, I was curious as well. I didn't have time to look it up, but anyway, this was fantastic. I don't buy many hardcovers these days because I simply don't have room, but I'm probably going to have to get myself a hardcover. The Evan Cagle art was just incredible. Just what.
Yeah, how about this cover? You got to call out this cover with young Orion and a young Scott Free. That's got to be one of the best covers for New Gods I've seen ever. I just love that. I love how Orion looks. He looks like a baby Darkseid in here.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic, and I really hope this is not the end. I really hope we get some more New Gods, and I hope we get it pretty quickly. And if it's Ramvi writing it, then great. If it's not Ramvi that's writing it, then I hope whoever is writing it, is willing to pick up the threads that Ramvi has left. All right, up next we have Nightwing number 132, written by Dan Waters, Dexter Soy on art, Veronica Gandini on colors, Wes Abbott on letters. Didn't make my top 5. Uh, Leaning into the dark aspect that we've known from Dan Waters for so much of his other work. Um, Probably the darkest issue of Nightwing that we've had so far, but really moved the story forward. But just based on the strength of the other books this week, that's why this didn't make my top 5. But
Yeah.
anything to add, Rocky?
Oh, yeah. Well, it made my top 5. I love this, and I love the darkness, and I love the fact I love how Dan Waters is incorporating the fifth dimension in a way that is, he's incorporating the horror element of the fifth dimension, because when we think of the fifth dimension, we think of Mixospitalic, we think of Batmite. Well, guess what? We have a fifth dimension here that was responsible for this new Nightwing character. Basically Nightwing character here, and with a young boy's mind, Bryce taking over this Nightwing body, and we also have the Circus Soleil has a fifth dimensional connection as well, and the person that's
Cirque du Sin.
The Cirque du Sin, sorry, yes. And this Zanny character seems to be a fifth dimensional character as well, from the fifth dimension, and he's utilizing the powers or some influence from the fifth dimension to use music and sort of like the circus to lure children in with music, and 7 or 8 children are going missing, and Nightwing wants to stop him. And Olivia Pierce is someone we learn more about her origin, and it's very dark and tragic, and how she set herself up as a young child to be rescued by Robin. When Nightwing was Robin at one point, she basically was convinced she was going to be rescued by Robin, and she set herself up. She intentionally, as a young child, with influence from the Zanny, put herself in a situation where she would be in harm's way and essentially have half her head sliced off. And of course, Robin wasn't there to save her. And so in her twisted mind, even though she sort of was the architect of her own injury, she blames Robin for not saving her, and ultimately falling that on Nightwing as well. But very much a horror element.
Don't gloss over that. Did you hear what Rocky said, everybody? She sliced the front of her face off.
Yeah.
And it's as horrific as you might imagine it would be when Dexter Soy renders it. It is horrific. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Yes. I want to emphasize that. It was on the strength of the horror element in this issue that made me put it in the top 5. And the Dexter Soy art, I mean, you nailed it. It was that powerful, because, what's funny is, at first I thought because we had that issue where Nightwing went into that giant blob, and he had to wear that special suit to go into the fifth dimension, and then he pulled out Nightwing, and I thought, well, that's kind of an odd narrative direction to go. What the hell's going on? It all makes sense now in a far more cool way, because that suit that he went into that blob to pull out Bryce when he was in the fifth dimension, that suit was actually part of Olivia Pierce's ploy, because that suit copied his movements. So now Olivia Pierce is actually wearing that suit in this issue. It helps her duplicate the abilities and the acrobatic abilities of Nightwing, and so it creates some more believability that she can go toe to toe with Nightwing. And ultimately, at the end, I mean, she's all part of the ploy. Olivia Pierce is nothing. She's been a lifelong victim and a lifelong ploy of the Zanny to ultimately becomes a victim of the Zanny herself at the end, where no one else in the world can see what's happening. They're battling on the roof. Olivia Pierce and Nightwing are battling on the roof. He can see the Zanny behind her. No one else can. There's helicopters around the building, and the fight's taking place. And it looks like Olivia Pierce has been decapitated, but no one else can see the Zanny actually doing it. And so it's really setting up Nightwing to look like the aggressor here, like he's being very much a villain. And meanwhile, children are watching this, while at the same time being pulled into this music, this horror like Cirque du Sin circus. And I'm really curious to see where this goes next issue, but this very much has a horror feel to it. And I don't often horror comics don't work for me, because I find they're often very derivative. This one doesn't feel that way. This one, it's extremely rare that I feel the horror in a superhero comic. I feel the horror in this comic, and that is thanks to Dan Waters' excellent writing, and Dexter Soy nailed it on the art.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's an excellent horror comic, but I mean, this whole storyline. I don't read Nightwing for. If I want to read horror, I'll go read Exquisite Corpses or World Tree. It's not, but I mean, it's so well done. I'm still enjoying it, but it doesn't make my top five because this is not where I go to turn for horror. And one of the things, and you mentioned it because it is a cool idea, a cool concept, right? Like Olivia Pierce tricks Nightwing into wearing this costume and learns his movements, and now she's able to go toe to toe with him. Except not really, right? She's not really going to be able to go to toe to toe, and he does defeat her in hand to hand combat.
Yeah.
But one of the things, like as soon as she said it, I'm like, well, that's not really going to work, because I could swear I remember. And again, if somebody in the comments, somebody watching in the audience knows exactly where this happened, or what issue reference, please point me in the right direction because I want to go and read it again. But I could swear that I read somewhere in some comic at some point that the reason that Dick Grayson can basically fight against Bruce Wayne, Nightwing can go up against Batman and hold his own, is because Batman has trained in all these different fighting styles, and he does everything kind of by the book, right? Like his fighting prowess is all from studying the moves and knowing if this person does this, I counter with this, and that sort of thing. And in that kind of this along the same lines, Nightwing does exact opposite. Like it's all instinctual coming from his initial training as an acrobat and being needing to improvise and what have you. I could swear I remember reading that somewhere. So that's why when I was told, oh well, he learned his moves. Well, he doesn't really have moves the way somebody who trained in this particular style of martial art is going to counter A with B and counter to C with D and that sort of thing. He's much more fluid and it's much more improvisational. I could swear I remember reading that somewhere, and I think relatively recently, probably in the last like 15 years of DC Comics. Yeah. But anyway, does that sound familiar at all to you?
Well, yeah, didn't we just reviewed a comic last week where they talked about his Nightwing's acrobatic skills? Wasn't it? Oh yeah, it was on Knife Fight. Knife Fight, Batman Knife Fight. He talked about. Yeah. He talked about.
This was further. I want to say it was in like an issue of Detective Comics or something. I don't know, but anyway, if somebody knows exactly what I'm talking about, remembers the scene at least, throw it down in the comments. I'm curious if that's just in my head canon or if it was actually established at one point. Again, I mean, certainly the suit allowed Olivia Pierce to be more formidable than she would have been otherwise. And I think it worked as a concept. Now, if she would have been able to defeat Nightwing, been able to defeat Dick Grayson hand-to-hand combat, then I would have called shenanigans. But she still doesn't, even with the suit's help, she's still not his equal. So I'm okay with it. All right, up next, I don't have a whole lot to say about this next book. It's Batman Deadpool #1. Several stories in here. The Cosmic Kiss capers the main story by Grant Morrison. He's the writer. Dan Mora is the artist. Alejandro Sanchez on colors. Todd Klein on letters. I did appreciate that the villain was Cassandra Cain, who is a Grant Morrison creation as well.
Cassandra Nova. You mean Cassandra Nova?
Yeah, Cassandra Nova. Sorry, Cassandra Nova from the new X-Men. Charles Xavier's twin that he consumed in utero, which is just the most Grant Morrison thing ever. And there are a ton of breaking of the fourth walls and a ton of in jokes. I mean, the whole thing in a way is an in joke with Morrison calling back to his Animal Man. But it was chaotic, and I just didn't enjoy it. To me, that main story embodies everything I don't like about Grant Morrison. It's too weird and just wasn't for me. There was a Hellblazer Doctor Strange story written by James Tynion, Joshua Williamson, and Scott Snyder, with art by Hayden Sherman, Mike Spicer on colors, and letters by Frank Sidovic. That might have been my favorite. I really enjoyed, especially the characterization for John Constantine. Then Nightwing and Laura Kinney team up. That one's got all the feels, just like you would expect, because it's written by Tom Taylor. Bruno Redondo, his longtime Nightwing collaborator, is the artist on that one. Adriano Lucas on colors, Wes Abbott on letters. Probably my least favorite, Harley Quinn and the Incredible Hulk, Harley and Hulk's Amazing Saturday, written by Mariko Tamaki. Now, it might be my favorite art because Amanda Connor does the artwork, and the colors by Tamara Bonvillain are beautiful. Dave Sharp on letters, but it was mostly just a Harley Quinn story, and it just didn't land for me. And then there was a Static and Miss Marvel story that I thought was just meh. G. Willow Wilson, the writer, Dennis Cowan on pencils, Klaus Janson on inks, and Francisco Segala on colors. Steve Wan's handling the letters. So yeah, Hellblazer, Doctor Strange, and the Nightwing, Laura Kinney, Wolverine were my most enjoyable. Would that, is that going to persuade me to pick this up just based on those two backups? Nope. I will be skipping this because, man, it is just too much Morrison for me. But if you're a fan of Morrison, then I recommend that you pick it up because you're probably going to love it. And it made Rocky's top 5, so I'm sure he has a lot more to say about it. And one of these days, we're going to get together with our friend Steve and do a comic talk episode because I do want to discuss these Marvel DC crossovers in a little more kind of high level comic talk. So anyway, give us your thoughts on this, Rock.
Yeah, I thought Grant Morrison did a really good job here. This easily made my top 3. Not only because I'm not a huge fan of Grant Morrison's Batman run, but the fact of the matter is that Grant Morrison's ideas in his Batman run, I like what other writers do with Grant Morrison's ideas. And so I got to give him credit where credit's due. He's got his great ideas. His Batman story here with Deadpool, I think it's just, it was a joy to read. I thought it was easy to understand. Obviously, I mean, it's basically Batman solving a mystery. Basically, he's exploring an artifact that has reality twisting abilities. He ends up meeting Deadpool. I thought the jokes were very clever. I thought the breaking of the fourth wall by Deadpool was something you would expect, but some things I laughed out loud at.
I will say that there were times I laughed in spite of myself because, yeah, some of the jokes were really funny.
Yeah.
They're really great.
Yeah, my favorite joke was when the fact that Deadpool is always talking, and it doesn't bother Batman. When Batman made the comment that his sidekicks, he's got sidekicks that do a lot of talking, and he's got an enemy called the Joker, and then Batman even sarcastically said to Deadpool, "Have you been talking?" like it wasn't a big deal to Batman. So it's such a Batman thing to say. Grim and gritty, could care less. Deadpool can talk all he wants. It's not going to faze Batman. That was funny. And I love Cassandra Nova. It's funny. The reason why I love this so much is I just don't read the X-Men. Guess what? One of the few X-Men stories I've ever read is I got the hardcover edition of Grant Morrison's X-Men. I read the whole thing. I love it. and what the irony is that most X-Men lovers don't like Grant Morrison's X-Men. I love it. It's also one of the few X-Men stories I've ever read. So I love it. I also, guess what? I own the entire Wolverine run where Laura Kinney was Wolverine. And that Tom Taylor wrote that. And I also read Nightwing by Tom Taylor. So seeing Laura Kinney and Nightwing together in a story that has the perfect title, Sticks and Schnicks. I mean, what a perfect title for them two. And the way that they respect each other, it never even occurred to me how much Nightwing and Laura Kinney have in common. It's incredible. And I would love to see these two have more adventures together. Boy, oh boy, if you just know that if Marvel and DC was to merge, I mean, the ongoing adventures of Nightwing and Wolverine, Laura Kinney, would be something I would absolutely be on board for. Constantine and Doctor Strange wasn't bad. I didn't mind it. It was decent. And the one that I enjoyed, well, there was only like 4 pages of it. I wasn't a big Harley Quinn and the Hulk. I could care less about that team up. That was more of a joke. And I wish they could have had a little bit more exploration of Static and Miss Marvel. I mean, those are two characters that not bad, but overall, I never read Marvel's DC crossover. So when the Deadpool and Batman, I never read the Marvel equivalent of this. I'm tempted to check it out now, but I got to be honest, it would be hard I would be surprised if it was as good as this DC rendition of Batman v Deadpool. But we shall, maybe I'll check it out. But yeah, I thought this was really good, and it was. Is it a cheat if I put it in my top 5, even though it's a Marvel crossover? I don't think so.
No, not at all. Not at all. I didn't read the Marvel one either. I bought it. I never read it. I planned on it. I just never did. There's too many variant covers to even talk about it. I think the
Yeah.
one that'll go crazy, be sort of the equivalent. The Marvel one that was one of the most popular was an open order cover, but it was Batman. He was holding up a boomerang, homage Hulk 340.
Yeah.
So you can see now there's a Deadpool version. He's holding up, I don't know, some kind of knife or whatever, and it's reflecting Wolverine. Well, it's actually reflecting, I think, Deathclaw, which is the Batman Wolverine mashup or whatever. But there also is a Ryan Sook variant where Batman is holding Deadpool that homages Crisis on Infinite Earth 7, one of the most homaged covers. I mean, we're talking about top 5 most homaged covers ever.
Of
Hulk
all time.
340, Spider-Man #1, Venom 300, Crisis on Infinite Earth 7, and I had the other one in my brain, and now I lost it. Anyway,
Yeah.
not important. But anyway, there's tons of homaged covers. Did I say Amazing Spider-Man 300?
I don't think you did, but
That's,
maybe.
that's that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how this does. If it does crazy numbers like the Marvel version did, I have a feeling that it will. But anyway, 2 more books. Neither one of them in our top 5, so we'll just go over them real quickly here. Justice League Red #4, written by Saladin Ahmed, Clayton Henry kills it on the art, Eric Prianto, Hi-Fi, and David Barron on colors, Lucas Catoni on letters. Not a lot happened here. Felt like a bit of a setup issue, getting a lot of exposition. But I will say that Red Tornado is able to show something to Power Girl and Cyborg and Simon Boz that kind of explains why he's had to keep this secrets from the rest of the Justice League, and they are sort of on board with going after Black Adam without telling anybody else. We're not privy to what it is, but again, this felt like a lot of setup, but gorgeous art from Clayton Henry. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, Clayton Henry, I love you. He draws Power Girl and her pair from multiple different angles, and I absolutely love it. I mean, we get to see Power Girl's best assets from the side, from the bottom looking up, from the top looking down. We even see at the end when Black Adam knocks Power Girl out, we get to see her unconscious. We see her lying down. We see her on her chest and on her back. We see her in all the angles that a Pyrian fanboy like me just loves. Thank you, Clayton Henry. That was I mean, I'm not enjoying this story all that much, but the art is absolutely fantastic. And just a quick note on this story that basically, apparently Black Adam, they got an algorithm that's going to predict that in multiple variations of the future, Black Adam is going to obtain godhood by essentially stealing power, some obscure red power energy that apparently Red Canary has acquired, and he's going to utilize that to try to battle Darkseid and prevent the Earth from becoming turning into apocalypse, and it's going to go spectacularly wrong, and he's going to make things worse. So it's kind of sort of related to DCKO in a sense, even though this isn't a DCKO, this isn't a tie-in of sorts. It's kind of related in a way. So take that for what it's worth. This is probably worth it just to pick it up for Clayton Henry's art because this is really good. But yeah, and wow, Power Girl, wow, whew. I tell you, I got to have a cigarette.
Yeah. Clayton Henry kills it on the art.
Yeah.
And I will say, this is one of those stories, it's 5 issues long. I think if Saladin Ahmed nails the landing, it can retroactively make the previous issues better if he nails the landing. But it's a pretty big if because, it's been a little bit up and down, and mostly with the pacing. All right, up last, we have the final book that we're going to talk about in detail. It is our DCKO tie-in, but again, it doesn't really feel that necessary to the event. It's Titans #29. John Layman is the writer. Pete Woods handles the art. Wes Abbott on letters, with Pete Woods coloring himself. And the colors are fantastic, and Pete Woods' art is great. We get to see Raven and Nightwing in Gemworld. That's one of the places that the Titans are evacuating members of or citizens of the Earth to. We get to see Starfire out in space. She's fighting against the forces of Darkseid and is about to be overwhelmed. She's supposed to be escorting some of the Titans towers that they basically converted into spacefaring craft that they loaded a bunch of citizens in, and that's when the female Furies attack. But luckily, the Green Lantern Corps shows up to help fend them off, and then we even find out that Black Star, Starfire's sister, is even there to help. But unbeknownst to Raven and Nightwing, Jinx, longtime enemy of the Titans, snuck her way into Gemworld, and she's much more powerful there because her powers are magic-based, and Gemworld is a place of magic. And so Nightwing has to go, or not Nightwing, Raven rather, has to go and release the prisoner that Nightwing and Raven sort of secretly brought to Gemworld to get the prisoner to help them defeat Jinx, and that prisoner is Terra. So we'll see. Don't trust Terra. Don't ever trust Terra. If there's anything you've ever learned, it's as a Titan, it's don't trust Terra. So we'll see how that all plays out. But again, it's a DCKO tie-in, but it didn't really feel necessary as a DCKO story. But it is there is a lot of action. It's well paced. It's well written. It's well drawn. It's a very technically well done comic. But yeah, I mean, I almost wish that DCKO wasn't crossing over so heavily into Titans, with the Titans being tasked with evacuating the Earth, because I just want John Layman to tell the Titan stories that he wants to tell, because when it hasn't been DCKO stuff so far, I've been loving what Layman's been doing. So take that for what you will.
I respectfully disagree with you. I quite enjoyed this. I think that this is a effective tie-in. I thought John Layman's done a really good job of. I love the fact that Raven has to free Terra. And because Terra's she might end up becoming a part of the Titans. I love the fact that Jinx, who's been a part of a different iteration of the Titans in the past, during that horrible Damian Titans era, I like to see her, and I like her influence and her power. She's being powered up on Gemworld, and I really like to. I like that, and I like that. Starfire and Blackfire are basically sort of going to be teaming up. They help to sort of take down Granny Goodness and the female Furies. So I thought this was action-packed as hell, and it's all related to DCKO. I agree with you that it's not necessarily directly related, but it's necessary to keep the dogs, so to speak, at bay while the events of DCKO are happening. And I really thought that, I enjoyed it for that reason, and I thought the art was absolutely spectacular. And it ends, of course, teasing that Cyborg is going to be going off to entering the ring. And we know from future solicitations, next he's going to be likely battling a Swamp Thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Also, a call, the fact that we got the Green Lantern show up, Jessica Cruz shows up along with Aya, who's unnamed, and Landar, who is a Green Lantern that Jeremy Adams brought Aya from the Green Lantern animated series into the pages of Green Lantern. Aya shows up with Jessica Cruz, and then also a new Green Lantern, Landar, who is sort of Sinestro's protege as a Green Lantern, who was also introduced by Jeremy Adams and I guess Morgan Hampton's run. So I sort of like that there's a universal feel to this. And so on the one hand, I kind of agree that if you're familiar with Titans and you just want to keep it toward the Titans and keep it tight knit, well, this definitely broadens the horizon. But John Layman, I think he had the reason why I like what he did here is I feel in this one issue, John Layman did something that, in my view, Tom Taylor failed to do. When Tom Taylor was writing the Titans, he had one job, and that was to make the Titans feel like the Justice League. And I don't think he succeeded. He kind of maybe exceeded in part with Beast World, but with John Layman here, I really feel that the Titans are Justice League level, handling all these threats, while the main stars of the Justice League are going into DCKO. That's what I like about this. It feels like they sort of earned it, and that's how I feel about it. And so that's why this made my top 5. This was in my top 5, and. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was in my top 5. And so that's why I'm talking a lot about it. So anyways, I really enjoyed it. So Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it wasn't that I didn't like it, but again, it's just selfishly, I want John Layman to tell John Layman stories, not have to tell the DCKO story. Because, I mean, I don't disagree with you that we're seeing kind of a better power level. The stories that Layman's telling are more indicative of the true power levels of these heroes. Like the Titans are worthy of heroes, but you could kind of flip that on its head and go, you said it yourself. Like, okay, somebody needs to take care of the, store, or, mind the store, or take care of the villains, what have you. Well, the main characters of the DCU, the A-listers, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
it's like a backhanded compliment. Not to mention, okay, these are powerful characters that are, deserving of respect or whatever, and they're sort of relegated to being like safety monitors. Hey, we're gonna go over here and do the important stuff while you guys, make sure everybody gets out the fire exit. You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah. I just want John Layman to be telling. Sorry, again, nothing against this. I enjoyed it. It was fine, but I rather would have had it. Hey, let's put this in its own one shot, if that's what we're going to be doing now, because we don't have DCKO crossover into everything. Just wish they'd go all one way or all the other. You know what I mean? Like either DCKO is happening and it's affecting all the books in the universe, and so we should be seeing it crossover into everything, or it's not, and put it all separate. So anyway, let's move on to other single issues that are out this week. There's a number of reprints. They're all Absolute titles. Absolute Batman #2 getting a 7th printing. That's crazy to me. The second issue is getting a 7th printing. Third issue of Absolute Batman is getting a 6th printing. The 8th issue of Absolute Batman is getting a 2nd printing. Absolute Batman 9 also a 2nd printing. Absolute Evil #1 is also getting a 2nd printing. That one doesn't really surprise me because I feel like a lot of people didn't realize the importance of that. And so they didn't pre-order it. And so comic shops probably didn't order as many of those as they maybe should have. When it comes to collected editions this week, speaking of Absolute, we have Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1, both a trade paperback and a hardcover edition, collecting the first 6 issues of that series. There's also a DC's Finest Green Lantern, which is collecting some of the most famous Bronze Age issues of Green Lantern, 40 through 61, Brave and the Bold 69, Detective Comics 350, and Flash 168. And if you look at the cover, you can see it if you're watching us on YouTube, kind of homaging the first appearance of Guy Gardner. There also is a Superman Action Comics Superstars Volume 2 trade paperback, collecting issues 1082 through 1086. That's the recent John Ridley, G. Willow Wilson story. G. Willow Wilson wrote the backup. John Ridley wrote the main story. And then there's a We 3 DC Compact Comics edition. That is a Grant Morrison story with gorgeous art by Frank Quietly about some anthropomorphic animals in a top secret U.S. research facility. It's weird. It's out there. I tried to read it. Couldn't really get into it. But again, if you're a Morrison fan, you may want to check that out.
I'm surprised to hear you say that because I know you're a pet guy. I actually read it and I actually enjoyed it, and I'm not into pets. So
yeah, it was too, yeah. Maybe I need to revisit it. I mean, when I read it, it was one of the first, I think I read it as it was coming out. I read the first 2 issues and I was like, nah.
Yeah.
And I dropped it. So
interesting.
Maybe now that it's all there, I should go and read it. Maybe I should pick up that compact edition. Who knows?
Yeah. Price is right.
Anyway, yeah, definitely. Those compact editions are a great value for sure. I mean, again, you get the whole series for $10.
Yeah.
Because I think it was 6 issues, 5 or 6 issues.
I can't remember.
And apparently, if I remember correctly, Morrison has said that him and Quietly have more stories to tell with those characters, but I'm not sure what the rights are because it was a Vertigo title, so they have some rights to it. But I don't know. I mean, DC's relaunching Vertigo. I'm sure they'd love Grant to come back and write more of it. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right. I went first last time, Rocky. So your turn. Go ahead and give us your rankings.
My rankings are coming in at number 10, Catwoman 81. Number 9, Justice League Red. Number 8, Superman Unlimited, issue 7. Coming in at number 7, Batman and Superman World's Finest, 45. Coming in at number 6, Wonder Woman 27. Coming in at number 5, Titans, issue 29. the tie-in. Coming in at number 4, Nightwing 132. I think I quite enjoy what Dan Waters is doing, and the Dexter story art is fantastic. I love the horror element. Coming in, my top 3 are, coming in at number 3, The New Gods, number 12. Ram V redeemed himself for me with the final issue, and I sort of reread the previous issues, so I've got a better appreciation for that. I'm so glad I did, and I do find myself, like yourself, Jace, wishing that hopefully we get some more New Gods in the future. Coming in at number 2, top 2. This was actually tough for me, but coming in at number 2, I put Batman Deadpool number 1, and coming in at issue 1, number 1, I put Absolute Flash number 9. I've been loving the Absolute Universe, and it just sort of like hit for me. I thought it was really good. Jeff Lemire's story is really starting to take shape, and I'm really enjoying it. So there you go.
Wow, that's great. Because yeah, it's been a little up and down, but yeah, it's definitely been on the upswing lately. I will say that this week's rankings were the easiest rankings for me, and it's probably the first time in, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks where I haven't made any adjustments. Like typically I rank them, and usually my top 5 stays the same, but I might shuffle things around within the top 5 and outside the top 5. I did my rankings over the weekend, and even with us talking about them, they did not change. They're exactly the same. So coming in at number 10, DC Marvel Batman Deadpool number 1. Just wasn't for me. Number 9 is Catwoman 81. Number 8, Batman Superman World's Finest number 45. At number 7, Nightwing number 132. At number 6, just outside my top 5, is Justice League Red. And then coming in at number 5, I guess I had Titans in my top 5 as well. I didn't realize that. So yeah, there you go. Putting my foot in my mouth. Number 4 is Absolute Flash number 9. At number 3, Superman Unlimited number 7. At number 2, and this was a little tough for me as well. At number 2, I've got New Gods number 12. And man, it was so close. I was like, man, I've given Wonder Woman my number 1 spot so many times. I should give it to New Gods number 2. But Wonder Woman standing up to Mouse Man and beating the shit out of him was just too good. And so I had to give Wonder Woman number 27 my nod for Book of the Week. It's been a while. But yeah. So yeah, overall pretty solid week. Yeah, I mean for me, New Gods and Wonder Woman were really the two that really was those two, and then it was everything else. They were at another level. So
yeah, good choices.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Appreciate everybody joining as always. Don't forget to leave some comments below, especially if you remember what I'm talking about with the whole Dick Grayson fighting style thing. If you're listening audio only, the Comic Source is available on all podcast platforms and apps. Just go to wherever you listen to your podcast and look for the Comic Source and subscribe. Apologies that we were missing from Apple Podcasts for a while. Apple updated stuff, and even though I agreed to the terms and services for the new stuff, they weren't updating my feed. I had to open a ticket. It took a week. But anyway, we're back on Apple Podcasts, so apologies for that. But if you are listening audio only and you want to check out the art and the variant covers and see our smiling faces, it comes out every week on Rocky's channel. Just head over to YouTube, do a search for his channel, Comic Space Boom, ! Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you know when new episodes drop. And then as long as you're at YouTube, you might as well head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel as well and subscribe there, because that's where all the other content comes out. I mentioned those fireside chats that are coming up. Hopefully Rocky, Steve, and I will get together and do a Comic Talk episode pretty soon. I've got other interviews that are coming out. I'm sort of toning down the interviews as we head toward the end of the year, just because people are busy with the holidays. I'm busy. I got to get those 12 days of the Comic Source in the can. So I know I've been sort of this final quarter of the year a little lighter on episodes, but just super busy with day job. I've been sick. I don't know if you can hear fighting off a cold and what have you. So anyway, we appreciate you guys joining as always. Happy holidays to everybody. You know, we've got Thanksgiving coming up. Christmas will be here before we know it. So hope you guys are all having a good time, staying safe and warm, and we'll see you next week.
You bet. Take care.